Okay, thank you all. We like to give it just a few minutes so some people can get on, and so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our webinar this evening. We are so honored that you have chosen to invest your time with us. I just want to take a moment to recognize this unprecedented and challenging time, and CHC is truly here for you. Um, Before we begin, my name is Mike Navarrete. I'm part of the Community Connections team here at CHC that conducts these webinars. I will also be the main moderator this evening. Additionally, two of my colleagues, Taylor and Cindy, will be supporting in the background. You might see them in the chat or Q&A, answering questions or helping to troubleshoot, so they will be there. A couple of housekeeping items. If you hover over your screen with your mouse, you'll see the chat and Q&A features specifically. Please chat us if you have a comment or response or any feedback. And please do use the Q&A throughout the session for all formal questions. We will make sure to save ample time to answer your questions in the last part of the session. We're going to take like the last 30 minutes or so and go through your questions. And we are also recording this webinar, so it will be available to all free of charge in our online resource library in the next week or so. So to access this presentation and the recording, it will be available at chconline.org/resource library. Before we start our session this evening, I'd like to share a little bit about CHC. So CHC has been providing top rated learning and mental health services to the community for almost 70 years. With the COVID-19 health crisis affecting every one of us, mental health is more important than ever before. If you're concerned about your child or family, please reach out. CHC is here for you. Our teletherapy services are available now through Zoom, Skype, and phone, and they are both safe and effective. If you're feeling down, you're not alone. Call and ask about our free 30-minute consultation with a licensed psychologist, and you can see all the contact information on this slide. And if anyone has any questions throughout the duration of this webinar, you can go to chconline.org, and that has all the information about who we are as an organization and the different services that we provide. When we all received the directive to shelter in place over a month ago, we were able to pivot quickly and offer virtual services. So we are open and ready to serve you. We know that the uncertainty of this time can bring a lot of angst, resulting in anxiety and depression. And we are even providing speech and language and occupational therapy services, and we could help. As I mentioned previously, we are delivering our clinical services for kids, teens, and young adults via teletherapy. And we are also just starting a new group for teens through our clinic. We also offer lots of free community education programs like this one. We have one webinar next Tuesday, May 19th on family dynamics during shelter in place, featuring a CHC licensed marriage and family therapist. And we have more upcoming webinars. We have a virtual parent support groups, and we have a specific support group, Parenting During Uncertain Times, led by a CHC licensed psychologist on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. And our curated online resource library full of free content on topics relevant to this time we are now all living and going through. And we also have a YouTube channel at CHC Online Palo Alto, and you're able to access this recording and other CHC related content through our YouTube channel. So we thoughtfully, personally, and collaboratively provide services to children, teens, young adults, and their families. And here are 4 areas of expertise that we specialize in: ADHD, learning differences, anxiety and depression, and autism. And we are particularly attuned to and adept at how mental health, learning differences, and attention challenges can overlap and complicate one another, and the special circumstances that our kids with these challenges are facing. Please visit us online to learn more or to access more services at chconline.org. Everyone is always welcome. Now I'd like to introduce our wonderful presenters this evening. I'm so excited to introduce Emily Hsu, licensed psychologist at CHC, and Ann Like, educational specialist at CHC, and I'll let them take it from here. Thank you both.
Emily, were you starting or was I? There we go. You're muted.
I was going to start.
Okay. Sorry, folks.
Sorry.
I thought we had it.
Yeah, my screen went out a little bit. So hi, everyone. As Mike stated, I'm Dr. Emily Hsu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist on the medical side.
I am Ann Like. I am an education specialist. I work in both our medical side and our private pay side. I've been doing assessments for kids for, gosh, this is my 19th year at CHC now. So our agenda tonight is we're going to do a quick talk of what is going on these days. We're going to ask you to do some reflecting on how you're doing as a parent, how you're doing as a teacher, and how you're doing just as a human being. Dr. Hsu is then going to talk to you about some different therapeutic strategies called mindfulness and radical acceptance. And these are going to help set a framework for being a parent and a teacher and a human all at the same time. So what is our new reality? It's not what we had signed up for, not what we were expecting. As of today, because of course it changes all the time, and I was just checking the news a few hours ago, we do know that what we know of as normal is no longer, and normal schooling, quote unquote normal schooling as we know it, probably won't be returning for quite some time, if ever. I'm guessing it's going to be kind of a hybrid of online and in person from now on. Some of the different things that I've heard about how schools might be managing this, I heard that Cal State University is pretty much almost 100% online starting in the fall. There's been talk about having staggered schedules because of the social distancing needs. There may be half of the kids going Monday, Wednesday, Friday one week, Tuesday, Thursday the following week, and the other half switching with them. Some schools are could be considering opening up earlier in the summer, or even going to a full year schedule or year-round schedule, just so there's more flexibility within the school year for when kids may not be able to make it to school. I know some districts have already offered their high schoolers a fully online curriculum, or it may just be partially online or fully online. The thing is, we don't know. When we made this slide, it was chances are high there will be another shelter in place. Well, we're hearing about some cities that are already extending shelter in place for another 3 months. We have the regular flu season coming up, and yes, we had no warning for this one. We did, we had maybe 3 weeks, but we didn't have 3 months even to get ready. Now we kind of have a bit more warning that we know that, yep, once the new school year starts again, we're probably going to be back in this position. So that helps, but there's still a lot of us, still a lot to be doing and a lot that we're struggling and adjusting to. So one of the first things we'd like to do is we've got a poll for you, actually. We're going to try this interactive thing that we're a little excited about because it's new to Dr. Hsu and I, which is how effectively do you feel like you're coping as a parent? There's some different choices that'll come up. And as you have gone ahead and, sorry, I'm getting my own here, a slide, Dr. Hsu. So there we go. Thanks. What we'd like you to do is just do some reflecting as we get into this. And I'd like you to think about kind of your own strengths and your own vulnerabilities as a parent. And actually, if you want to use the chat and just throw some words out there, my strength is this, my vulnerability is that, or not even label them as such, but just tell us what's on your mind, that would be great. But we just want you to think about, what do you feel good about that you can do as a parent? What you're like, well, this part isn't so good, but I'm doing what I can.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the different ideas, do you tend to parent by guidance, or do you tend to parent by punishment? Do you let your kids take risks? Do you tend to hover over them? What are your values as a family and as a parent? What are your styles? There's some families that every night everybody's together at dinner. And there's other families that every night, people are off and they're doing their own thing. And we're not saying that one is right and one is wrong. There's no judgments here whatsoever. It's just recognizing what is your own sense of this is what parenting's about. Education for some families is all academics, and education to some families is a wide variety of activities and learning from a number of different sources. Social interactions. There's a lot of families who are, everybody's together all the time, and others where no, we've got our own. So think about, what are your strengths? What are some of your vulnerabilities? Mike, can you share what some of the responses that have come up have been?
Definitely. Hi, everyone. I am Mike. Again, I'm part of the Community Connections team, and I'll be assisting and moderating this evening. So a few of the responses that we're getting back in the chat, and thank you all who are typing your responses. One person wrote, strength is teaching, but my vulnerability not teach my own. Another person's strength is using life mishaps as lessons. Strength, patience, vulnerability, feeling like my kid is different and needs to catch up. Vulnerability is fear of being judged as a parent. I thought I was more patient, but I'm realizing I'm not as patient as I thought. This person wrote, patience is a strength. As family, we have to prioritize mental health over academics. This other person wrote, I find that structure is difficult for me. And then vulnerability with fear of unknown. Strength, teaching through life topics. And that's where we're at right now. So thank you all to those wonderful
Those are fantastic.
responses. Yeah.
There's such a wonderful wide variety, but I imagine so many of them really hit home for a lot of you. As a, oh yeah, I do that. Oh yeah, that's happening for me too. And again, we're not placing any judgments on any of these statements because they are what they are, and they're very human and very real. But as we're thinking about how am I going to do all this together, we just feel like it's important to be able to recognize and put a name to this is, as I do with the kids, thumbs up or thumbs down. How are you doing with things? So our next poll is, okay, how effectively do you feel like you're, I went too far on my own things. How effectively do you feel like you're coping as a teacher? And we've already heard some of those of like, yeah, I'm fine as a teacher, just not my own kids. And that's a pretty legitimate thing too. So, ways to think about it. Are you creative and flexible? Or do you like having those specific instructions to follow along? Some folks are more what they call, the type A personality, tick, 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 tick. Others are more go with the flow. We'll figure it out and we'll learn life lessons as it happens. Something else to consider as you are now thrown into this new role of a teacher is, what academics are you comfortable with? Some folks may be the math whiz in the family, and some may have severe math anxiety. And so, that won't be as effective for them, but then there'll be other things that they are more effective at. And here's a key one that I think really needs to be thought about is, how well do your own strengths and vulnerabilities match your child's learning style? So if you're really structured and they need to be able to be flexible, or vice versa, where they need a lot of structure and it's hard for you to impose that, that's going to make things more difficult. It doesn't mean that it can't happen. It just means that things are going to need to be figured out in a different way. So that's something else that can cause that frustration or that feeling of, oh my gosh, what are we, what is going on and why? Mike, back to you. What are some of the responses that came up for this one?
So looking in the chat and actually going back to the last question that you had, we actually got a few responses. So maybe I can start with that.
Yeah.
This person wrote, I learned to roll with it. Weakness, sometimes getting overwhelmed. I feel so sad that my son is losing his elementary school experience, former teacher. Half overwhelmed, half okay. Good with academics and enjoy teaching, but my child has a lot of challenges and very unwilling to do anything. Also single parent working full-time from home.
Yeah.
I am a longtime teacher and I'm struggling to understand what my child's teacher is expecting. The teacher structure is very different from my own. My husband and I split subjects. He takes math and journal, and I'm all English language arts and social studies. Strength, organizing, vulnerability, flexibility. Teaching my own kid. I don't know when to push and when to back off. I worry my kids are missing a social component of school. And this last person wrote, ability to be patient with teaching a child with dyslexia at home who expressed her strong emotions towards me.
Yeah.
Oh, we got another one. One of my sons is also on an IEP. It can be difficult to judge if I'm doing things right.
Sure. Yeah. So looks like folks are feeling a little bit more of we're hanging in there. We'll plaster a smile on our face and get through today, but we're hanging in there. Definitely a little bit more on the calm side. This is something that, a lot of us didn't choose to go into as a profession. We're not teachers. It sounds like there are a lot of teachers in there, but there's a big difference when you've got to balance those roles. And especially the teachers out there were really thrown into this where they're shifting how they teach. And so, knowing what their expectations are or how it's going to work is really tricky. So let's go ahead and, you guys, I'm sure, can anticipate what's coming, which is how effectively do you feel like you're coping just as a human? So do you have anxious tendencies? Do you face life head on? Boom, let's go do it. Do you tend to be more easy, mellow? Are you quick to temper? Do little things make you laugh at them, or do they make you fall to pieces? There's a lot of different parts about being a human, and there's a lot of different roles we play, but humans are the one at the core of it. So have we had some answers coming up on this one?
Not in the chat.
Okay.
But yeah, please do use the chat and okay, looks like we're actually getting a few responses.
What is the question? The question is the same, which is, what are your strengths and vulnerabilities as a human?
Okay. Coping good sometimes and then having bad days. Strength, acceptance, vulnerability. Oh my, am I so anxious? Help. My anxiety off the charts leads to insomnia, irritability, lack of focus.
Yeah.
Acceptance of others, not myself. Strength, connecting with friends and doing things to take care of self. Anxiety and depression, vulnerability. I'm task-driven, trying to let go at times for kids. And then humorous strength. Know what I can change and what I cannot. Vulnerability is being a perfectionist. Some days are great and others are extremely overwhelming. Let's see, this next person wrote, I'm pretty go with the flow, but having to deal with the emotions of others is difficult to manage, especially with small children around.
There's so much going on day in, day out, 24/7. And we slide. We we didn't sign up for this, we don't know when the contract's ending. We didn't sign up for this. There's a lot of feelings going around, and as you just heard with all of them that just came up in chat, a lot of them, like I said earlier, I'm sure are very familiar. Anxiety, it's frustration, it's anger. Hopefully there's some joy in there as well. Hopefully moments of peace. But we have been thrown into a whole new situation. Our definition of normal has completely changed. We're living in a world that we didn't ask to be living in, quite like this. We didn't sign up for it. Yet here we are. One thing that I want to kind of remind us as we're looking ahead as to how do I teach, how do I parent, what's going to be happening, is that keeps striking me most over the last few days is that we are living in a new world. You know, we kind of use that phrase, oh, it's a whole new world. But it's not just the Bay Area that's recovering from a 6.5 earthquake, and it's thrown us off kilter for 6 months. Our world is in shelter in place. So everybody's life is changing. And so it's not just that we have to then scramble to catch up with the rest of the world. After we come back from shelter in place, we're all going to be figuring this out together.
Hey, Anne and Emily, I'm sorry. We have a few more responses. Would you like me to read them off?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. I have 4 kids and all 4 are so different. I seem to do better with the ones that like more structured type of class teaching. I wish I could change my ways of teaching to accommodate each one. The one I'm having the most problem with is the one that as soon as we mention schoolwork, his life turns to being terrible. He cries, hates this new way, very difficult. He's 8.
Yeah.
Strengths, organize, connecting with friends. The longer the pandemic goes on, the more my anxiety and depression affect our everyday life. Lonely. Strength, continuing to work out and fit in runs or bike rides outside for a mental break and fresh air. Strengths, compassion, vulnerability, my own anxiety and depression, also deal with chronic illness. This person wrote, we live with my aging parents. This person wrote, too sensitive to their mood. Another person wrote, strength, go with the flow, acceptance, vulnerability is easily, gets bored easily. This person wrote, quick to react, yet able to reset. Just wish I could see and reset on front end. Strengths, cultivate gratitude, vulnerability, insecurity with technology. This person wrote, I'm very organized, compassionate, attention to detail. Another person wrote, vulnerability, getting mad. And someone else wrote, it's hard when they are having a bad day themselves. I'm fearful of what is happening, is what this person said. And then lastly, vulnerability, I like to have control. If I'm giving my 100%, I expect the same. Those are some additional responses that we got back. So thank you all for participating in the chat.
Thank you so much for sharing all those thoughts and opening yourselves up. You've heard this before. You will hear this again. All of those feelings are very normal and very legitimate. And in some ways, what we're going to be sharing with you tonight, you probably also heard in some ways, but there's also hopefully some good new information in here too. But there's going to be ways that you can learn how to work with that anxiety, work with that uncertainty, work with that anger and frustration, and just that, oh my gosh, what is going on now, and how do I refocus? I think giving yourself permission to be feeling it and to be okay with it, with feeling that way, and just saying, yeah, this is where I'm at, is really a very important skill to be able to do just in and of itself. Dr. Shu is going to be starting to talk about these different strategies that will help you kind of tolerate that of emotions that come up. And so you will end up feeling, hopefully, more safe physically, mentally, emotionally. Okay? So, Dr. Shu, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Like, and thank you so much, Mike, for reading some of the responses. And again, I want to echo just how grateful I am that I have this opportunity to speak with all of you. I also want to thank you for being so vulnerable with us with some of your comments. As Ms. Like had said, a lot of us are feeling a bunch of different things right now. There's a lot of maybe emotional pain, maybe it's physical pain, maybe it's a combination of both or all of that. Pain is something that is familiar to many of us, as parents, as teachers, and as humans. It's that sensation we get that something is wrong or that something isn't right. Some of us are also familiar with suffering as well. Suffering is our mental response to something that is painful. It is our interpretation or the thoughts that you tell yourself about the pain. Some examples of that, when I say interpretations or thoughts, might be judgments. So I'll definitely be touching upon that, as I definitely did hear some judgments, thoughts that we have, and also our beliefs about what's happening to us in that moment, be it pain, a negative emotion that we don't like, or our circumstances. You might notice that I talked about pain, and I also talked about suffering, in that I defined it separately. And there's a reason for that. I define them separately because, pain and suffering are not the same. They can be related. And to actually introduce how pain and suffering are different, and a concept of how to work with our current circumstances. Because I know there's a lot of feelings going on. I heard a lot from our parents, and again, I really appreciate you taking that time to share it with us. I'd actually like to share a personal example of physical pain to kind of illustrate a concept I'm going to be going more in depth into. There was a time when I was working on the computer so much that I started experiencing significant pain in my arms. I tried to push through it. I tried to ignore it. But I got to a point where I couldn't move my arms, and I was sitting on the couch in agony. I wasn't doing anything while I was sitting on the couch. I was literally just sitting there, and my arms were just very upset with me. And it finally occurred to me in that moment that I had a choice. I was at a crossroads where I could either choose to accept and address the pain, or I could continue to ignore it, be like, you know what, it doesn't exist, and be miserable. I talk about physical pain as an example because I think for some of us, I know for myself, when I first heard about COVID-19, like the pain that I was experiencing, it was kind of like something that I heard about. I was like, okay, this is what's happening in the world. It doesn't apply to me. And when I was trying to feel the pain, I was like, all right, I feel the pain, it's there, but it's not like right in the forefront. It's not something that I have to deal with. And I kind of think of it as a parallel, which is why I use this example, where we're probably feeling so much. We're probably feeling a lot of emotional pain when we have to juggle all these roles that we didn't sign up for, and being not just a parent, but a teacher, and a human all at the same time. We've now had to kind of deal with a lot of pain. I think someone mentioned that anxiety is something that is big, and they feel very debilitated by it. I definitely did at that moment. You hear me talking about accepting the pain, where I came to that crossroads. I could either accept the pain and address it, I could choose to push it away. And I want to be clear that when I say accepting means acknowledging what is happening to us in the moment. It is putting a name to our feelings, which gives us something to work with. In other words, in my example, kind of like when I said I was at that crossroads where I was like, right, I could either accept that my pain is pain in my arms, or I could go very close to having that pain become suffering if I were to choose to be like, no, I'm not going to accept it. This is not fair. Why me? And then address it. In our current situation where we're having to juggle the uncertainty of our daily lives, which is why Miss Like and I wanted to kind of understand what you're going through, some of the thoughts that are happening, some of the emotions that are occurring, which we recognize change at every given moment, just like our situation has been changing. Increasing your ability to tolerate or work through some of those changes starts with how you approach the pain, how you approach the anxiety, how you approach whatever emotion you want to insert that you don't like. To do so, you're going to need a therapeutic strategy called mindfulness and also radical acceptance, which I've kind of briefly touched upon with my example. And if you've come to some of our talks in the past 2 weeks, you've also may be familiar with it. But I'm going to talk about it in a little bit more in depth in the next slides. And the reason for that is because often when a person is hurting, when you're not feeling at your best, your first reaction might be to get angry, to get upset, or to blame someone else for causing the pain in the first place. I'll use myself as an example. Remember me on the couch? Anger definitely was a feeling I had. I definitely wanted to blame someone. But unfortunately, when we're feeling at our lowest, when we're feeling like we can't exact change when we so want to, or that change is happening and we're like, oh, I did not ask for this. The fact of the matter is, no matter who you blame for your distress or our current circumstances, the hurt, the pain, the anxiety, it still exists. In fact, in some cases, the angrier you get, sometimes the worse your pain feels. So what can you do? One of the first things you can do is start by asking yourself a question, which is already starting to introduce one of the concepts I'm going to be talking about in depth called mindfulness. Before I do that, I'd like to ask you guys this question. How are you feeling emotionally and physically in this moment? I'd like to really encourage you guys to check in with yourself. This is the first of the 2 questions that I'm going to be asking, and I want to give you guys some time to respond. And then I'm going to have our moderator, Mike, read some of the responses. So please, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Emily. And we did have a response from someone previously before you mentioned this question, so I want to address that before I get to the other responses that we're getting right now. But this person wrote, single father trying to successfully cope with co-parent, and new father figure who has been watching my 5-year-old son and taking my son to school without any say for me. So coping with new dynamic without being spiteful and rather open to kindness. Is what that individual wrote. So so now addressing the responses from this question. This person wrote, exhausted thinking about the future. In this moment, okay, this is what this person wrote. Last night, sad. This individual wrote, I feel wiped out. Next person said, hopeless, not knowing what to do. Going forward, this individual wrote, I am swamped in emotions, physically exhausted. Continuing on, this individual wrote, emotionally tired and craving mental stimulation since my work slowed down, and I have had to focus on being a parent and shoulder more responsibilities at home. Next person, emotionally drained due to shifting between work, school, and family. Physically tired, but motivated by the achievements of our family in this crisis. Next person wrote, emotionally, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells around my father and exhausted with homeschooling. This person wrote, tired physically. Next person wrote, feel overwhelmed at times. How long will this last? This individual wrote, always on. The next person said, stressed and exhausted. Just trying to keep going with teaching and homeschooling my 3-year-old. My 3, I assume that's 3-year-old. Or my 3 children. Could be 3 children, excuse me. Next person wrote, not able to telework nearly as much as I was hoping in order to homeschool. This individual wrote, emotionally better, but we have good and bad days. Today, right now, I'm feeling okay. Physically, until recently, motivated, started exercising again, but for past 7 weeks, zero motivation, Some days I just start crying, hopeless. This person wrote, I feel like I have a lack of control over the circumstances, but hoping that all the sacrifices will be worth it. Don't know what to do with my family, including my spouse. Physically feeling good. My only outlet is my exercise. And then this last person wrote, trying to homeschool fourth grader and sixth grader is so stressful when trying to work at the same time. So we really, truly appreciate everyone taking the time to use that chat and to respond. It helps the presenters and it helps us when you provide us this feedback and responses. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And we're still getting some, but I think for the sake of time, we're gonna continue on to the next question. So.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for being so willing to respond, and also for coming, and taking the time to answer our questions. This is my second question. How are you bringing mindfulness to your mental and physical state each day so that you can make wise, responsible, and caring choices during shelter in place? Again, I'm going to give you guys some time to respond in the chat, and then have Mike just read a couple of responses.
Okay, so in response to this question, one person wrote, using Insight Timer app every day, check in with myself is what this person wrote, doing mindful minute of breathing. Another individual wrote, having a gratitude moment, then praying, also walking alone and with family. Next person wrote, we do family mediating and my kids remind me to breathe, meditation, if I start to raise my voice. Meditation and exercise is what this next individual responded with. And then just going down the list, exercise and at times find my hiding places around the house. This person wrote, also started Wim Hof breathing in cold exposure. One person wrote, the one mindfulness I do is exercise. That's me time. I also try to meditate, but it's inconsistent. I try to take a bit of me time away from my family, but wonder if I'm just checking it out. This person wrote, sorry, mindfulness does not come to mind. I am just trying to cope with the changes. Next individual, I have been exercising but stopped meditating. Maybe I should go back to that. I'm working so hard to recognize and acknowledge my feelings and allow myself to feel. I'm going to try to go through these quickly. Meditation, but what works today doesn't work tomorrow. It's hard to meditate with 2 children running around, hang out with our dogs. I do in the morning, but have a special needs child, and needy one requires a lot more than day allows, as behaviors are more challenging in current circumstances. Honestly, if I may be open, have attended AA online daily, followed by meditation and exercise. It's helpful. It's helping me be more kind and mindful. Daily devotion book and journaling. I feel emotionally drained teaching a 7-year-old, homeschooling, and having to get ready for his IEP. I honestly have not paid much attention to myself recently until recently. A week ago, I started exercising. I try to do stretches with calm music when I can. I look at flashcards that have helpful verses, journal. And so that's what we got so far. So I think we'll continue with the presentation. But
Great.
An amazing collection. That's wonderful.
Yeah, great.
And then I want to just remind everyone real fast, if you do have your questions, please do use the Q&A, and we're going to take the last 30 minutes or so and go through your questions. We really, really appreciate your questions and your responses and your comments and all your feedback. So thank you.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to respond to these questions. I ask these questions, and I actually encourage you to ask yourself this question every day, multiple times a day, to kind of take a pause, give yourself permission to take a pause when you can. And I ask these questions because they offer the opportunity to bring our attention to ourselves, to make sure that we are, being the best that we can be for ourselves and also for our loved ones, and especially in the face of uncertain times. That's why I ask these questions and encourage you to. I've kind of already given you guys a little bit of a hint, and it sounds like a lot of you guys know and are already practicing mindfulness, but I'm going to quickly go over it. Mindfulness is the ability to be aware of your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations and actions in the present moment, without judging or criticizing yourself or your experience. I talk about mindfulness because the first step to being able to deal with a situation is to be mindful of it. It opens up a lot of opportunities for us to deal with a situation based on the facts of what's going on versus our interpretation of what might be going on. Some of you might know this, but why is mindfulness important? And some of you might be asking me, well, Dr. Shu, I'm pulled in so many different directions. I mean, I hear it, in the responses to our questions. It's so hard, it's already hard being a human. It's already hard being a parent. It's already hard being a teacher. And here we are having to navigate all these roles, which keep changing as our current circumstances keep changing. And I also call us to check in with ourselves and focus on mindfulness because we are in a society, we're in Silicon Valley, where being able to do multiple things at once and adapt to multiple things at once is rewarded. And while it's rewarded, sometimes we miss some of the important ways of how to work with a situation so we can be the most effective for ourselves and for others. And so I'm going to go over briefly why mindfulness is important, and then going to go into some of the how. How do we practice mindfulness, which some of you are already doing, which is great. Mindfulness helps you slow down. It helps you to focus on one thing at a time. Mindfulness is important because it helps you identify and then separate judgmental thoughts from your experiencing. Okay. These judgmental thoughts sometimes often fuel overwhelming emotions. And when I say judgmental thoughts, I mean like when we talk about things like good or bad. I will use, negative and positive emotions just so that, we make a distinction. The judgments we have towards ourselves. I'm not good enough. I'm not a good teacher. I suck at this. Those kinds of judgments that we have. And sometimes, when we say, I'm not good at this, do we feel better about that judgment we had? When I say that about myself, usually I don't. So it's important when you're mindful to notice in the present moment, right here and now, some of those judgments that start coming to mind. Mindfulness is also important because it helps you develop the ability to be able to make healthy decisions based on both your rational thoughts and also your emotions. You also notice that, when you are mindful, which takes practice every day, you start noticing that you're able to kind of increase your tolerance of stressful situations, or in our circumstance, the fact that everything keeps changing and we're having to kind of adjust as we go. So it helps you increase your ability to be able to tolerate all the changes that occur. Studies have also showed that it also increases relaxation when you start kind of focusing inward, taking pause and noticing how you're feeling, putting a name on that emotion, and then checking in with yourself physically. As a result, it also increases your ability to use skills to cope with, as I said, difficult situations. Without this awareness, I noticed, I think some individuals were talking about, I'm good right now, but yesterday I wasn't so good. or I'm good right now, or I'm thinking about the future. I encourage you to focus on the present moment because, like I mentioned, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And the past is the past and already happened, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But when we are mindful in this present moment of what's happening to us, it increases the likelihood that we're going to do things more mindfully versus mindlessly. And an example that I use is something that I do sometimes is I'll be driving and all of a sudden I'm home and I'll have no idea how I got there. That's an example of doing something mindfulness. Habitually, we're kind of just cruising along and not really putting ourselves in it to be able to make, for some of us, more effective decisions for what's needed. If you're struggling with emotions like anxiety, emotions, or circumstances that you don't like, being mindful can help you feel more in control, which I'm sure is something that we'd all like to feel. Mindfulness helps us be aware of the presence of emotions, like anxiety or worry in the form of thoughts, and in the sensations. It allows us to be kind of an observer and to be curious about ourselves instead of trying to push them away. Repeatedly returning and checking in with yourself by using these two questions. How am I doing emotionally? How am I doing physically? Can sometimes really center us and help us take pause so that we can then go towards and deal with some of the situations, whether it's parenting our child or being his teacher. And that's also why I asked you these two questions. I'm going to now quickly go into how do we complete mindfulness, which you probably know by now. First thing you can do is start to observe. Notice their experience and what is happening to you right now. Observe using all of your senses. Your eyes, your nose, your mouth. What do you notice? Describe. Put your words on the experience. Label what you observe with words using only facts. Describe only what you observe without interpretation. Okay? Participate. Fully put yourself into the moment and fully experience your feelings. The other part of this is to do this non-judgmentally. Notice what you are thinking. Notice what you are feeling without labeling it as good or bad. Just notice and observe them. The other thing you can do is to do it one mindfully. I think someone had said that they were doing that, which is great. It's where you focus all of your attention on only one thing at this moment so that you can then do something effectively, which is the next part of this. Focus on what works after you've taken a scan and kind of taken pause to be like, how am I doing mentally, emotionally? And after you've taken that pause without judging or criticizing, then focusing on what works to achieve your goal. To do mindfulness, you're also going to need a concept called radical acceptance, which I think is something that is definitely hard. That's why it's called radical. Radical acceptance means that you accept something completely without judging it. You'll notice some of the wording I use might sound familiar. It's because radicalness is actually a part of mindfulness. For example, if we were to radically accept in the present moment, it means that you don't get angry, you don't fight it, or you don't try to change it into something that it is not. If we were to look at our current situation, to radically accept our new normal these days, it means that we are acknowledging this global situation, even though we didn't give it our permission. It happened with very little warning. And yes, we have little say about what happened. The present moment, whether we are talking about your personal situation or shelter in place, is due to events and decisions that happened in the past that led up to now. While some of these decisions were not made by us, we still have to deal with the situation, which isn't fair. However, this concept of radical acceptance, which is why it's radical, is to say and to notice if you were to fight it, If you continue to let yourself get stuck in that it's not fair, didn't ask for this, that's where that starts leading to the path of suffering. When you don't accept it, when you don't acknowledge it. And then you can start feeling more anxious, more exhausted, cranky, stressed, etc. It is important to note, and I want to be careful when I talk about radical acceptance, that radically accepting something does not mean you just give up and you radically accept every bad situation that happens. It's, like I mentioned before, the acknowledgement of the situation. It's saying, you know what, some situations in life are unjust, and when that occurs, I encourage you to keep these ideas in mind. When we accept what's happening, that does not mean you approve of it. Accepting what's happening does not mean it'll go away. It just means that you're acknowledging it. And then choosing, once you're ready to do something, to make it better, to the best of your ability. It's also accepting that everything has a cause, kind of like what I mentioned before. The thing to remember that there are times when getting stuck on the why of a situation isn't going to help. We are going to acknowledge that here we are, we're going to accept it as it is, and we're going to move forward. In the case of my arms, with my physical pain example, for me, I did need to acknowledge why that happened so I could help prevent it from happening again. However, I had to be careful of going into the why me, why now, because that's not going to help. And for some of us, it might be, helpful for us to understand why, how we got to this position where we're feeling certain things in order to help us be more able and more armed and equipped to be able to move on and do what we need to be effective. So how do we radically accept? First, acknowledge your feelings about the situation. Is the situation stressful? Is it causing anxiety, anger? Remind yourself that these feelings make sense given the situation that you're in. Validate. Next one, focus your attention on the facts of the current situation. Because we can't always change the facts, and we need to accept them in order to be effective. And then it helps us shift our focus on what we can do to be effective. Last, make the conscious decision to approach the situation from a place of openness. And when you find yourself drifting back into fighting reality, which is also normal, and it happens, it's saying, taking pause and saying, oh, I notice what's going on, checking in with yourself emotionally, physically, and mentally, and saying, all right, do I need to accept or acknowledge the situation in order for me to be the best version of myself and keep going? And noticing when you need to do that radical acceptance again, again, and again. Okay. I'm going to have my colleague talk about the next slide where she kind of ties it together and putting it to practice.
It would help if I unmute myself and try to. Sorry. Okay. So how do we pull these all together? Different thoughts to keep in mind. This has been kind of a mantra of mine for the last few years, which is put your own oxygen mask on first. There's a reason they tell us that. And you have to be able to take care of yourself before you can effectively take care of others. As a parent, that's your job. Take care of others. A lot of us are also taking care of our parents or extended family members or neighbors. But you've got to be able to be in your own best space first. And this includes all those things we're always teaching our kids. And it's funny because I suddenly remembered growing up, my mom, a fair number of times, looking at me and saying, do what I tell you, not what I do. Do as I say, not as I do. And so it's those things that we all know. But do we remember to do for ourselves? Good food, nutritious food, good sleep. And I know that one's really hard to come by these days. A lot of reasons. We're waking up in the middle of the night, staying awake all night. doing what you can to get as much good quality sleep, exercise and movement, even just a little bit every day, fresh air and sunshine. Mental downtime is huge. Um, here in the Bay Area, we tend to be much faster paced than other places in the world, and it's rare that we definitely have good downtime. And that means different things to different people. Some of us are very socially active, and mental downtime may be what is now the Zoom happy hour with friends and a whole bunch of people. But others, it may be curling up on the couch with a cat and a book and a cup of tea. It's whatever you need to take that time for yourself. Someone mentioned earlier, I need my time, but I'm worried that I'm checking out. You're not checking out, you're taking care. It's like someone was replacing it. The whole shelter in place is we're not stuck at home, we're being safe at home. So giving yourself that time is taking care of yourself. I saw someone else mention something about finding my hiding places in the house. That may be for you physically, that may be for your chocolate stash that you didn't tell the kids that you bought. Whatever you need to do is fine. You're here with us tonight because you want to feel better about how this is going. And we know that what you're doing is in fact good enough, but it doesn't feel that way. You may be real judgmental about how you're doing things. You may be really worried about it. And when we were creating this, I was thinking about something I hear from the kids a lot. I test kids for learning disorders. So they get excited because they get to get out of school for the day. And then they come to me and I say, do you know what you're going to be doing? Schoolwork. And it's unfortunately often enough that I hear them either muttering to themselves or they'll flat out look at me and say, I'm stupid. And I hate that word, but I'm going to use it in this example because that's what the kids say. And my heart just breaks for it. But then what I do is I try to reframe it for them. I just stop testing right then and there. And I say, well, you know what? Hang on. This is going to sound goofy. But I know that you're not stupid because you feel stupid. And they look at me and they're like, and you're nuts. But I explain to them that feeling stupid means that you're aware that something is not going the way you want it to go. It's your signal that something's harder for you for some reason and that you might need help with it. You might need to relearn it. You might just need a break from it. Right now, you have at least 3 roles that, you're a human all the time. Okay, you're a parent some of the time, you're a teacher some of the time. Suddenly, you're having to do this all at the exact same moment with no break. It's like trying to do 3 actual, business jobs at the exact same time with no break. It's exhausting. Of course it's exhausting. And of course you're going to feel like you're not doing a good job at times. And I tell the kids when they give me that, I'm stupid. I tell them, you know what? It's absolutely okay to feel stupid. Because believe me, as an adult, you're going to feel stupid at times. We all do things. And it's okay to feel frustrated. But know that that feeling is what's letting you know that they're actually smart because they recognize it and they know that this is something that they can change and that they can get through. So, next, some more thoughts to keep in mind. Resiliency is a big one, and that comes from that flexibility in situations and not perfection. One of the things that I really liked about the social media during all of this is that there is so much support out there. And I recently saw a letter from a parent to teachers everywhere thanking them. I get it now. I get it. They say. But what this parent was doing was giving permission to the teacher to teach however the heck they wanted, just to get through what we could do. And the writer said, if you want to let your kids sit on your lap and eat cookies while you're teaching, go for it. If your mind is completely, distracted by something that's going on with your parents, put the National Geographic special on for half an hour and go call them and take care of things. It's fine. If you're not in the mood to teach the lesson, you just want to talk to the kids and connect with them, that's fine. Do it. Because the parent pointed out that just by showing up, by checking in with the kids and caring enough to do this crazy difficult job of teaching and doing this on the fly without really any warning is showing the kids a lot. They're already teaching important lessons. this shelter at home teaching, the teachers being there, however they're teaching, however you're teaching, you're showing the kids that people are flexible and they can adapt to new situations. That even when things are hard, people will show up and they'll give it a try and they'll get through it. And it may take a few times, but they'll learn and they'll figure it out. That people will work together and become a community to help each other. That even when things are uncertain and scary, that people care and they're good to each other. Yeah, I think back to that Mr. Rogers quote that's going around, of course, again, which is wonderful, of always look for the helpers. So what we're trying to say is that, yes, there's a lot of teaching that needs to happen, but don't give yourself permission to not worry and focus as much on the content of what you're teaching the kids, but how they're dealing with the teaching and how they're dealing with the learning. Because there's a lot of learning that goes on. Teachers, they'll be able to fix the academic problems. That's what they were trained to do. That's what their passion is about. But a key thing is for you to remember that as a parent, your job is also to help the kids be in a good emotional space for learning. That they're going to be able to deal with learning when there's still anxiety going on, when they're still feeling stressed, when things are going on. We've been hearing about some really good things that have come out of shelter-in-place distance learning for some students. And I think this tends to be a little bit more for the older kids who are a little bit more independent, but there's still some really good things. We've heard for elementary school kids too, where the self-pacing has really helped some kids take ownership of their work. As everybody's getting used to how do we do this and what's this and what's Zoom and what class, what, dojo, what? As we're all figuring this out, there has been a reduction in expectations. And so that's given everybody a little bit of, okay, we're going to do what we can. We'll get through this. For some kids, there's been less peer pressure, either socially or academically, and it's helped. For some kids, not being able, being at home and not being able to go out and do the job or be on the soccer team or something, it's actually helped because there's less pressure to do all these things that are going to go on the college applications. And they can focus just on school or just on something instead of trying to fit it all in at once. And my favorite one is that sleep for a lot of teenagers has become much better. Because they're able to self-pace, they are able to adjust when they're working better to their own circadian rhythms. Teenagers' bodies were meant to go to bed later and sleep in. And if they can do that and start their classes at, their classes at 10:30 instead of 7:30 or 8, their minds are a lot sharper. Things feeling a lot better for them. And so that's really helped. So there are some good things that are coming out of this. Some other things to keep in mind, slide, is try to remember when good is good enough. There's good and there's enough. Especially as we're trying to juggle all this and we're trying to get used to everything. Again, teachers can fix the academic problems. It's not just us locally. There's a lot of worry about kids being behind in the fall. Kids will be behind in the fall. And there'll be a few kids who may be ahead, just like they are every single year. And the thing is, there's going to be a lot more kids who are going to be, we're all going to be shuffling and figuring out where are people at? What are things at? We don't know exactly how it's going to be. But we do know that we have the ability to work with it once we get there. So, of course, you want to encourage best work. Of course, you want to be, hey, yeah, no, education is important. We're going to be doing this. But at times, priorities shift. And someone mentioned earlier, and I'm mentioning now, that sometimes mental health is the priority of the day, and that's perfectly okay. I am going to encourage you that, if you need to, go play hooky. Take a day off. From time to time, give yourself and your kids that physical, mental, emotional recharge. A story that I love is that about a month into shelter in place, one of our clinicians announced during a meeting, she said, okay, I'm fessing up. And we're like, about what? And she said, we blew off school yesterday. We said, good. And she goes, we went to Disneyland. I goes, what? And Disneyland had posted all, videos of going through the rides. So they had spent the day in their living room going through Disneyland. But it was what they needed to just take a break, reconnect as a family, and then they got back to schooling the next day. So it's okay. You need to decide what's worth the time and energy at this moment. Is there another place that could use that mental energy that's going out there? Does your kid really need to do 20 math problems when they can show that in 5 or 8 math problems they know what's going on? And then they can use that extra time and energy for the writing assignment that neither of you really want to get through? You can pick and choose. You make the situation more manageable. And give yourself permission to know what's right. A lot of you already are. Okay. So different ways you can kind of adjust and change things. One thing that you'll hear me spouting at our parent conferences after evaluations is, and I'm talking mostly about homework time, but it's, home teaching, is keep in mind the end goal of the assignment and adjust it from there. In elementary school, kids often have that list of 10, 15 spelling words, and they do something with it every day because they're supposed to be practicing spelling the words. So one assignment might be use your spelling word in a sentence. Well, you're going to have kids who are going to give you a sentence that's this big because either they hate handwriting or they don't want to spend the time thinking about it, or, to write a sentence this big takes a lot of effort and there's more fun things to do. What you can do, the end goal of that assignment is to practice spelling the word. Tell your kiddo, hey, guess what? I want you to come up with a really good creative sentence, and I'm going to write every word except your spelling word. So you write the spelling word, and you write the rest of it. There you go. The end goal is the same. They have practiced spelling the word. But in the meantime, you've taken off one of the obstacles that may be in the way of doing good work. They've still done the thinking. They've still done the practice of writing the spelling word. You've just adjusted it a bit. Another one is picture a worksheet. Here's a volcano. Here's the text. Here's the questions. Read, answer the questions. A lot of kids might just read, find it, copy it. There you go, done. The end goal of that assignment is to understand about volcanoes. It doesn't matter how it goes in. It doesn't matter how it comes out. You can read the information to them. They can dictate it to you. They're still learning about volcanoes. Okay, and it's not just look and find the answer and write it down. You're asking them and you're engaging them. Tell me what the answer is. I'll write it down. All you're doing is just adjusting what the output is, or the input in this case. You're finding the end goal of the assignment. Pick your battles. Some days mental health will be the priority. It may be that, math is not going to happen today for us. We've really got to just spend the whole day on getting that story written. Or we're going to tackle fractions and we're going to ignore some other stuff. Or maybe the goal is simply you're going to sit at the table for 10 minutes without complaining and work. And it may be that work that is being done is very simple. So they're feeling that they can accomplish it, that it's possible. But by golly, they made the goal of sitting there for 10 minutes. And that's something to celebrate some days. Absolutely. And that's something to just appreciate. It doesn't have to be hard work during that time. That's not the end goal. That's not the priority right then. In talking to parents during shelter in place, there's often been questions about how can we designate this as homework time. And one thing we found is that, we're always recommending, have the kids have the homework area where they work. And, they make it, oftentimes it's the desk in the room. Well, you send the kids to the room. They're not going to be doing it on their own. They don't like to be in there by themselves because it's an anxious time, or maybe they're just going to goof off. So back to the kitchen table. Unfortunately, the kitchen table is also used for eating. It's used for crafts. It's used for family discussions and everything else. Some families have figured out, or we've learned, put something like designate a tablecloth or an old sheet or something as the homework or work time table cover. If the hot pink flowers or the transformer sheet is on the table, that means it's work time. When it's off, we're eating, we're doing something together as family, it's craft time, whatever. But if that sheet is on the table, it's work time. Okay, it's just that visual reminder that helps. Another thing is, we often talk about put on your thinking cap, put on a literal cap. Fold it out a newspaper, grab an old baseball cap that you like. Make something decorated, buy beanie propellers online, whatever you want to do, make fun with it. But having that cap on is not only the physical reminder, but it's also a visual reminder for people around. Younger siblings, older siblings, people who might just interrupt. Walk in, see someone in a hat. Ah, it's work time. Okay, I know to leave you alone unless it's an emergency. Or I know you'll be done in 10 minutes. I'll wait. So sometimes just those little things can really help. Another key thing is thinking back to your strengths and vulnerabilities. Trade that homework help, that schoolwork with friends and family. If you are not a math person and your cousin is, and you have the ability to connect through telehealth or whatever, go for it. If you're more into writing essays and your neighbor's kid, needs that help, hey, see what you can trade around. Find those strengths and weaknesses and take some of the pressure off. Okay? See what you can do about that. And remember that learning is happening constantly. All the things you're doing during the day, you're modeling learning. You're modeling resilience, you're modeling flexibility, but you're also modeling other things. Cooking and baking is math and sequencing and organization and nutrition, games, puzzles, arts and crafts and building. It's imagination, it's planning, it's problem solving, it's counting, it's strategy development. Time management comes along with cleaning and chores. Hey, you get 30 minutes of video games after you get your room cleaned up. Okay, time management. If you're goofing around while cleaning up, you're not going to have as much time later. Time management, things kick in. Listening to music and books and podcasts, there's that content learning and that use of the imagination to visualize it all. Taking a walk, just the exercise, the nature maybe, learning about different things, social skills. Learning is always happening. Give yourself credit as a parent and as a teacher for all that just you're teaching and doing through the day. So, a lot of information. I know we're running over on time. We're going to try to kick through this last here, and we're sorry about that, but you guys had a lot of great things to say, and we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged and heard it all because we are all that community. We are all feeling a lot of the same things.
Hey, Anne, maybe we could take one question because this is in regards to you talking about prioritizing one's mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a rule of thumb for the amount of time one needs for personal time, recharge time?
No.
Sometimes I feel like I need 2 hours to myself per day, but that feels selfish. So maybe you could respond to that one.
I would say I'm not the psychologist, I'm the pop psychologist, but I see Dr. Shu nodding with what I'm saying. So jump in if you want to, Dr. Shu. No, you do what you need to do. We're all different people. And some days you may just need 10 minutes because the night before you managed to sleep really well for some unknown reason. And some days you may need those 2 hours where you just want to go in and grab a book and sit on your bed and shut the door and just say, no, this is my space. This is me time. We all recharge in different ways. I'm very much a book on the couch person. I've got friends who need to be out and doing things, but we all recharge in different ways and we need different kinds of recharging. Sometimes for me, that is going for a walk with my dog. Other times it's curling up with the cat you saw, swinging by earlier. So it's hard to balance out. Yes, you're going to feel like, oh, I should be with my kids. I should be giving them my all, or my family, or I need to be doing other things. But giving to yourself is going to give you more that you can then give to others.
I completely agree. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's a great question. And I think that's also why, I think being mindful is so important because when you're mindful, you take that pause, you're checking in with yourself and you're saying, what do I need?
Mm-hmm.
And if you need 2 hours to recharge, you need 2 hours to recharge. That's not good. That's not bad. That's not right. That's not wrong. It just is. And that's why I encourage you to notice, if you start having, some thoughts of, oh God, I take so long I said 2 hours, but I actually need more. Oh my God, is something wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. I mean, like Miss Light just said, sometimes it's 10 minutes. Sometimes it's longer than 10 minutes. And our days vary, and I think the concept of being mindfulness is just why I know that CHC has talked about it a lot. It's so important to be mindful about what's going on for us. And it's also important so that we can then be that better parent, be that better teacher, and then also be that better human. And knowing what to do to be effective so that we can also make sure that our children are also, being mindful of what's going on and then knowing what to do next. And I think that this also kind of goes into, just to kind of review, what mindfulness is. It's being in the present, and it's recognizing when you check in with yourself emotionally, mentally, and physically, what do you need? Because when you're having certain emotions, when you're having certain thoughts, and when you're having certain physical situations, that's your body as a parent, a teacher, and a human telling you that you need something. And it's time, and why not answer? Why not take that time to focus in on yourself so that you can then do what you need to do? And perhaps do it differently and in the way that you'd like to do. And so to briefly review what mindfulness is, it involves being in the present. The past has already occurred. The future is yet to be. So we can't time travel. We can't go to the future. We can't go to the past. So let's focus on what we can do, which is be in the present moment. It gives us the ability to accept painful thoughts and feelings. At least it increases that in a more balanced way. It's knowing when you check in with yourself. Mental health is more important today. We do this actually in our field where we literally say, I'm going to take a mental health day. And CHC is a great organization where they let us take mental health days because we just need to recharge in order to be a better version of ourselves and also help those that we'd like to help. Mindfulness, also offers a way for us to turn towards our anxiety, which might seem strange. Like, why would you want to turn towards your anxiety? Well, you turn towards your anxiety because feelings and emotions, they're not good or bad, they just are. And when we avoid them, which obviously feels better, in the moment because we're avoiding, you're not working with the fact that anxiety is always going to be there. It's always going to be the elephant in the room. So what can you do? You can approach it mindfully again and again. And you'll notice, because your body is here to protect you, that yes, you're going to feel those intense feelings of anxiety, which is normal. But at one point, what comes up must come down. And then when you face that anxiety or whatever emotion you want to put that you don't like again and again, you're going to notice when you're doing it mindfully with purpose and intention, you're going to feel better. It's just going to take some time and practice. There's also that concept of radical acceptance. It's not saying that you agree with the situation. If your teenager does not want to do his homework at the time, that sucks, right? If he's not listening to you or she's not listening to you, we don't like it. No one likes it when no one listens to us. But it's also saying that if we fight with the situation, no one's going to be happy. Nothing is going to maybe get solved. So maybe what can we do to kind of make the situation better? Why don't we explore? Why does my 16-year-old son not want to do his homework? Take time to check in with him by asking this question, like, what's going on? How are you feeling? You seem like you're feeling this way. It's a time for you to have that conversation and to be really curious about what's happening. And I tell parents all this time, behaviors tell us something. We don't necessarily have to tell you verbally. There's so much that is told non-verbally. So radical acceptance is also about shifting your mindset and saying to yourself that this is the situation I'm in right now. And even though I don't like it, when it comes to the pandemics, I can't change it. What can I do to approach it from the best place possible? Ms. Light.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Emily. And I think we want to make some time for some questions towards the end here, if that's okay with you both. And this presentation, everyone, will be posted to our resource library. So I know we're kind of cutting it close here, but if you all would like to reference the slides, they will be on our website, chconline/resource library. That'll be posted there. But if we could get to a few questions, that would be wonderful, Emily and Anne. So the first one that I have here is, how do I know that I'm doing a good job as a teacher for my own family There's no feedback loop, and teaching is done in isolation.
Yeah. It's hard to know. It's hard to know. Part of it is that teachers were also thrown into this with no warning whatsoever. Some schools were kind of anticipating, and they were a little bit more ahead on being able to set up distance learning so that things were able to get rolling. But the thing is, we're all in this. We're all learning at the exact same time how to make this happen. So asking, reaching out to the teachers again, and it's probably again and again and again. But also recognizing that they are also parents. And so, they will be available during the school hours as they're doing it, but they're not going to be available 24/7 to be able to answer questions. But do reach out to the teachers and see what's going on, especially for kids with IEPs. Hopefully the teachers can be giving you ideas on how to address their goals and break things down a little bit more, or modify assignments. A lot of it is just going to be faith in your own skills, that you've got it. You can reach out to other professionals in the community. Reach out to us at CHC. We can see what we can do to help reassure you that you're doing okay. And just know that wherever they are, when things start up again in the fall or whenever it is, we'll get it sorted out. We're going to be sorting out where every kid is, and we're going to be making adjustments at that point. And we can only do so much at this moment to prep for future moments. And when we get to those moments, we're going to have to deal with those moments as they come too. It's utterly frustrating, but that's kind of the best way we can get through it right now.
Great, thank you both. In the heat of the moment of a crisis, how does one go into the mindfulness mode? That's the next question we have here.
Sure. I think one of the kind of things that I do, like when I'm starting to feel anxious, I take a pause. What I basically do is I start checking in with myself, and I guess I actually have a question for you, because sometimes I recognize that if you're in the heat of the moment, you're in a crisis, sometimes going inward and being mindful is too much. And so I don't know if this person can answer this question, but if it's too much to focus inward, I'm able to say it. Sometimes you can use a technique called grounding, which is different from mindfulness and meditation, where you close your eyes and you focus on your breath and your emotions. It's that technique that you use when you're in crisis and you're like, if I'm going to close my eyes and focus inward, that's going to be too much for me. And so what this grounding technique does is your eyes are open. And what I love about this technique is you can do this anytime, anywhere, and nobody has to know. There's actually, you can do grounding techniques like physical techniques, where you literally, like if you're sitting, or if you have something near you, you start describing to yourself by holding on to it all the things that you can about it. You can also do mental grounding, which is, like something that I do with some of my patients is I say, name all of your favorite Disney movies, name all your favorite movie stars, or sometimes I have soothing grounding, where I have individuals imagine their safe space. What does it look like? What do you smell in your safe space? What do you see? What do you hear? And I tell individuals to keep doing this until they start noticing that if whatever negative emotion they're feeling decreases. And then when they're not feeling as overwhelmed by their emotions, maybe you can try mindfulness, which is focusing inwards and checking in, like, how am I doing emotionally, physically, and mentally? Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. And I just want to be respectful of everyone's time, because I know that we're nearing the end. So I want to ask you both one last parting question. But before that, I just want to wrap up. I will stay online a little bit longer, if that's okay with you, Anne and Emily, just to answer some more questions. My colleague Taylor, I just want to give a shout out. You're more than welcome to log off, and I'll stay on. And anyone who wants to stay on a little bit longer for the questions, a few more questions, you are more than happy to do so. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. One last thing, we do have a survey. If Emily, you don't mind going to the end, I just want to highlight that we have a community ed survey for this particular session, and we really do appreciate your feedback. We're able to have these sessions thanks to our generous donors, and it helps us plan for future sessions and to be able to have webinars like this and ongoing sessions. It truly does help us. So thank you. And if you can take a moment to fill that out, you will be emailed this link if you registered. So no worries about filling it out now. But when you do have a moment to reflect, that would be greatly appreciated. And again, we do have a parent support group, Parenting During Uncertain Times, that meets on Wednesdays at 1 with the licensed psychologist at CHC. It is a tremendous group. So anyone that wants to check out that group, it's completely free. Please go to our website, chconline.org. And we do have some upcoming webinars for free too. We love seeing you on here, and it's really fun for us. It's fun for me and for our presenters to get to see who's on and to interact with everyone. So I personally really appreciate being here with you all. So yeah, if you both have anything that you would like to say just to wrap up, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, well, actually, we do have a visualization that we were going to lead everybody through.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yes.
we are going to go ahead and stay on and do that. And, participants, thank you for coming. You're welcome to sign off. You're welcome to stay with us. This is being recorded, so if you want to come back and do the visualization later, that's fine. But we will stay on to do the visualization, and then
yes, and I apologize if we don't get to all the questions, but we do have them archived, so maybe we can go through them at a later time and go through those questions.
Yeah.
And we'll try to get to them and get those posted somewhere if there's time for that. So great. Thank you both.
Okay. So we do want to teach you this one little this skill, and it's an emotion regulation skill that's called thought diffusion. And it's a strategy that's going to help you kind of unhook from your thoughts and overwhelming emotions. You get to use your imagination because you're going to be visualizing your thoughts and emotions either as pictures or words. And then during this exercise, you get to picture those pictures or words or whatever floating away from you. Key things are that you're not judging, you're not analyzing, you're not getting stuck on them, you're just seeing them, letting them go. So there's a lot of different ways you can imagine this happening, and a lot of visualization techniques have to do with nature. If you're not a nature person, make it work for you. Maybe you're a steady person, and instead of watching things float away like clouds, you're watching cars down busy streets taking them away. Make this work for what feels right for you. Some other ideas would be, sitting near a stream and watching these thoughts and emotions, these words just kind of drifting past or being washed away as words on the sand. Maybe you're sitting in outer space, and these are going by you. Whatever feels good to you. During this exercise, it is important to remember the idea of radical acceptance. These thoughts and emotions that are coming up, they are what they are, okay? Don't get distracted by analyzing them. Don't criticize yourself for having them. Or don't deal with them. Just let them come and go. When you're doing a thought diffusion exercise, you can do it in one of two ways. You just start it, see what comes up. You never know. Or you can focus on a particular trigger of something that's currently stressful to you right now. Again, notice how you're feeling emotionally. Notice how you're feeling physically, and then begin. Our exercise now is going to take about 4 minutes or so, and Dr. Chu will be leading you through it. But if you do it on your own, as you're beginning, try, maybe set a timer for 2 to 3 minutes. You're not going to be able to sit down for 15 minutes necessarily and do this all at once, but you'll be able to get used to it and give yourself longer periods of time. And once you become comfortable with it, you can use it throughout the day. Briefly closing your eyes and imagining these thoughts and emotions going past you. So go ahead and stand and stretch if you want to. Take a few seconds to adjust to get comfortable where you're sitting, and go ahead and we're just going to give you a few minutes to stretch and kind of, because we've been sitting here for a while, and then go ahead and Dr. Shu will lead you through this.
Okay. To begin, Find a comfortable position and turn off any distracting sounds. I'd like to invite you to take a few slow, long breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth, and then to close your eyes. Once your eyes are closed and you're focusing on your breath, start to use your imagination. Picture yourself in a scenario where you can watch your thoughts come and go. It may be sitting in a field, watching your thoughts and emotions floating away on the clouds. You may be sitting near a stream, watching your thoughts and emotions floating past on leaves. You may also see your thoughts and emotions written in the sand, and then watch the waves wash them away. Wherever you are in your scenario, choose to watch your thoughts come and go, and do your best to imagine yourself in that scene as you breathe in slowly through your nose and then out through your mouth. After you do, start to become aware of the thoughts that you're having. Start to observe the thoughts that are coming up, whatever they are. Don't try to stop your thoughts, and do your best not to criticize yourself for having any of the thoughts. Just watch the thoughts arise, and then using whatever technique you've chosen, watch the thoughts disappear. If any of your thoughts is a trigger thought, just notice to yourself that you're having a trigger thought or a thought that you don't like. Observe any emotion that it brings up and let the thought and emotion go past you by whatever means you've chosen, without getting stuck on them and without analyzing them. Just let them be. You might notice through the course of this exercise that you might start thinking about something else. You might become distracted by something in the background or by another thought. That's okay. Just notice that you're having that, and we'll come back to the current exercise as many times as you need, without judging, without criticizing yourself for becoming distracted. Whatever thought or emotion you have, big or small, watch it arise in your mind and let it float away or disappear by whichever means you've chosen. Keep breathing slowly in through your nose and out through your mouth as you watch your thoughts and emotions float away. When you notice distressing emotions arising in you because of your thoughts, let them float past in your imagination. Continue to watch the thoughts and feelings arise and then disappear. Use pictures or words to represent your thoughts and feelings, whatever works best for you. And do your best to watch the thoughts and related feelings arise and disappear without getting hooked onto them and without criticizing yourself. If one or more thought or feeling comes up at the same time, see them both arise and then disappear. If the thoughts and feelings come very quickly, do your best to watch them all disappear without getting hooked onto any of them. Continue to breathe and watch your thoughts and feelings come and go. And now, breathe in slowly through your nose and then out through your mouth. Continue to take another breath. And then when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and return your focus to the room.
Wonderful. Thank you both. I think on that note, we're gonna conclude. because it is a little over 8, and I just want to be respectful of your time, Emily and Anne, as well as Cindy's and Taylor, who are in the background. Thank you to all of our attendees. Again, we truly appreciate everyone taking your time, especially now more than ever, throughout this challenging time, to spend with us. We really, truly do greatly appreciate it. And as I had mentioned, I said it several times, but the presentation will be posted to our resource library. I believe Taylor did list the link. Yeah, that she put the link in the chat, as well as the survey link for you all to fill out. Thanks again. Have a good evening, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
And we'll leave the chat open just a little bit, but Emily and Anne, you're more than welcome to sign off here. And if anyone has any last thoughts or comments, you're more than welcome to put those in the chat. So thanks again.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Bye.
You as well.